Welcome to the No Limits Podcast, where limits do not exist, where you can create cash flow, equity, and real freedom with the power of real estate.
3, 4. Now, we will begin.
Welcome to the Dojo. The Dojo. This is Todd Toback, and welcome to the No Limits Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that is probably one of the most asked questions in all of real estate, and that is, how do I get past the price objection when I'm talking to a seller? How do I negotiate the best price out there? How can I get a deal in which I can make a profit? And I'm so excited about talking about this because this is what happens in the trenches, right? This is what separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls, and I am just so pumped up for today's show. I'm actually going to break this section into 2 episodes. One, when you're negotiating a deal over the phone, that's going to be this episode. And the next episode, I'm going to talk about how to negotiate that deal when you're in person. But before I jump into the show, if you have not been to our website, nextlevelwholesaling.com, there's an assessment there that you've got to take, and it's actually going to score you in the 4 important areas of your wholesaling business, and that is marketing, acquisition, disposition, and accounting. Okay. And once you take this assessment, it's actually going to show you the very next step that you need to take to start to take your real estate business to the next level. So make sure you go to nextlevelwholesaling.com. All right. So let's talk about the price objection, right? How do we negotiate the best price when we're talking to a seller? Remember, our job is to find a seller with a problem. And that is the most important factor when you're trying to make money in real estate. Because if you can't help somebody, if someone doesn't have a problem, you can't offer a solution. And if you can't offer a solution, well, then you're not going to make any money. So it's really, really, really important to know that as an investor, your job is to deal with people who have a pain point. All right. And we're going to identify that using various techniques, by asking questions, by building rapport, by being empathetic, and really custom delivering a solution to a seller. So when you start talking to a seller about their house and trying to buy their house for below market value, if you just jump right into it with no plan or no empathy or no rapport or really no desire to listen, you're not going to offer any value. I see so many new real estate investors go out there and they just want to get right into it, right? They just want to say, I'll give you X for your house. And if the seller says no, the deal is over. And they wonder why they struggle. They know why they wonder why they can't build any traction in their real estate business. I can tell you that those who understand that this is a dance, okay, that we really are problem solvers, that we need to listen, that we need to custom tailor a solution, are the ones who get the biggest spreads in this business. Now, if you're brand new and you've never done a deal, you can earn 5-figure paychecks. You can earn 6-figure paychecks. I even know people who have done 7-figure paychecks on commercial deals in this business. And I can tell you, once you learn how to master the price objection and how to get the best price, it is game over. And you get to help people in the process. So I'm going to specifically talk about how to negotiate the best price on the telephone in this episode. So I'm going to assume that you know that your goal is to find somebody with a problem who wants to sell. And for whatever reason, they don't want to list with a real estate agent and sell the traditional way, right? They want to trade some equity in their property for some speed and some convenience. And this is where we come in. And you want to identify these people by asking questions. That's really, really, really important. Why are you selling? Why sell now? And I talk a lot about this in my no limit selling system, right? You really, really, really want to get good at asking open-ended questions. Okay, open-ended questions is a question that the seller has to ask with a actual answer, right? You can't answer it with a yes or a no. So if I say, are you trying to sell fast, right? Well, the seller can only say yes or a no, or they will say yes or a no, or they're going to get really defensive and not tell you the truth, right? So what you want to do is ask a question that's going to force a conversation or critical thinking by a seller, where they're going to open up the floodgates, right, of the pain in their life. So for me, I would say, Mr. Seller, Why sell now? And then listen. Mr. Seller, tell me why you have not listed this property with a real estate agent. And then listen. Mr. Seller, tell me, I know that you told me that you were talking to 3 or 4 people. Why haven't you accepted those other offers? Right? Now, most people will come in and say, well, is my offer higher? Is my offer lower? Right? Do you need to sell by this date? And so they're in this position where they're just like rapid firing these questions to sellers, and sellers are like, yes, no, yes, no, right? And it's so combative, right? There's so much tension. And it's like, I just hate it, right? When I see new wholesalers and new real estate investors get stuck in this situation, because it's like you're on the opposite side of the seller. So what you need to do is, even if you're over the phone, you've got to come around the table, right? Come around to the same side of the table with that seller and ask those open-ended questions. And if you're doing this right, you should be very quiet, and the seller is just going to be talking and you're just going to be listening. And it's going to be so powerful. So when you do this, you also control the conversation. And so many times a seller will jump and say, well, what is the best price you could give me for the property? And they control the conversation. Now you're forced to give an offer, and there's no conversation, and the new wholesaler shoots out a number. They say no. And, the seller basically hangs up, and that's where most amateurs get stuck. And by the way, if this is the first time that if you're trying to do your first deal, right, you're an amateur, right? And even if you think you're good, right, I really, really, really implore you to listen to this podcast several times, because you're going to learn something. I could tell you, sometimes when I think I know something, I start to listen to other experts in other industries, and man, I just soak this stuff in. Remember, this is your craft. Talking to people or training other people to talk to people, this is your craft. You've got to get good at it. And it is just a game of learning and repetition, learning and repetition, learning and repetition. Okay. So when you ask questions, you are controlling the conversation. You are not on the defense. Okay, so I'm assuming now you understand what the seller's problems are. You've built trust. You've got some open-ended questions that have been asked. Now is the time to bring up price. And so you want to be very non-confrontational. I'll say, Mr. Seller, let me ask you a question. What would be the best price you'd consider if I'd pay all the closing costs? There'd be no commissions. Okay, you'd sell as is. You wouldn't have to make any repairs to the property. What would be the best price that you'd consider? And then just listen. Okay, now the seller may at this point give you an answer, right? And hopefully they will. I can tell you that maybe 30 or 40% of people out there will give you an answer. But the rest have been trained never to give a number, right? Very, very important. Understand that most people know not to give a number. So you want to ask at least 5 different ways. So that's the first way. The second way, you could say, well, I know that maybe you don't want to, give me a number, or you don't know, or maybe they are just playing dumb, right? But I would say, listen, do you have a ballpark? And then just listen. The third way I'm going to ask is I'm going to say, just give me your best guess. Okay, now if you're not getting to a question here by the third or the fourth, I think you're going to know and start to understand which way this is going to go. Now, the last one, the fifth one, right, is the bomb, the atom bomb. And it's the one that almost always elicits a response. So number 4 is the least confrontational and will work sometimes. I say, hey, do you know what the neighbors are selling for? Right? And then they'll start to open up of what they think the property is actually worth. And I'd say, okay, well, can you tell me a little bit of that? Is that in line with what you're looking to get? Or are you willing to trade some equity for some speed and some convenience? Right? Now we're getting someplace. Right? Now they may answer or may not. They may be guarded. So this is the atom bomb, all right, to get the number. If for whatever reason they are not giving you a price, you have to do some kind of pattern interrupt, right? They're not answering. They're not giving you the answer. And by the way, at this point, if they've given you an answer, you can actually start to negotiate the price at this point. And this is okay, but I'm assuming at this point that seller is not giving you an answer. So if they're not giving you an answer and you're on that fifth one, you want to go really, really, really low, but your tone is extremely important at this point. Okay, so let's say that you know that you could pay $200,000 for a property and, the seller is just not giving you something. I might say, Mr. Seller, what if I could give you $100,000 for the property? Is that even something you consider, or probably not? Am I crazy? And you want to use the voice that you have. You want to pull away a little bit. You want to laugh a little bit and keep it really, really light. And the seller at that point, they may say yes, which is great, right? We've had that happen. Or two is they may say, no way I'd sell for $100,000, right? There's absolutely no way. That is way out of range. So at least now you have something, right? The seller does have a number that's obviously way lower than they think. Okay, well, you could say, Mr. Seller, well, you had said that you had no idea what you wanted. It sounds like 100 is way out of line, right? What's more in line? And you see how I'm keeping it friendly, right? I start to stay on their side here and saying, look, of course, I'd like to be able to make a profit here, the biggest as possible, right? The only reason why I said that is that you don't know. Can you help me out? And then you want to get on the same side of the table with the seller virtually. This is on the phone, right? And get that number. Now, if any point you feel like there's too much tension and you're breaking rapport, meaning that, you guys are getting combative, right? Cushion it, right? And say, Mr. Seller, I totally get it. I understand that some people may want to get top dollar. I just want to let you know, as an investor, I buy at a price that, I need to make a profit at. And so, if we can come to the meeting of the minds, if we could find a way to get closer, I'd love to discuss that. If you want to list with an agent and get top dollar, more power to you. I can help you in any way I can, right? And so break that tension, use that cushion and pull away. You can say, I know, I'm not a fit for anybody, but, why don't we talk a little bit more to see if there's even a possibility that we can do business? And then you can start to talk about something else and then come back to that. Now, one of the things that I'll use at this point is something called the range technique. And I learned from one of my first mentors, Peter Conti and David Finkel. And that is, if I can't get to that number, or if they're at 220 and I need to be 200 and that initial number that I threw out was 100, I'd say, so what you're telling me, Mr. Seller, is that you'd take anything between 150 and 220. And obviously there's a big gap there. And no, I wouldn't take anything less than, 200. Okay, so you're really looking for that 180 to 200 range. Yeah, 190 is the absolute lowest I'd go. Okay, so 180 to 185, right? Now, if the range technique works, right, keep using it. If the range technique does not work after 2 times, okay, then stop using it, because the seller will get agitated. And so you don't want to keep doing that if it's not working. So that is going to wrap up this episode on how to negotiate the price objection over the phone. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about actually how to negotiate the best price in person. There are some little nuances that you can use. And again, if you can get in front of a seller belly to belly, that's when you're going to negotiate the largest spread. Please, if you have not shared this podcast, can you copy the link from iTunes or Spotify, or wherever you consume this content? Copy the link and text this to 3 people. We are really growing the podcast right now. And if we start to see a lot of growth, which I need your help, I'm going to start publishing more and actually bring on some more rock stars onto this podcast. So please share it with at least 3 people. I would greatly appreciate it. And make sure you tune in to the next episode, where I'm going to talk about how to negotiate the best price with a seller when you're actually in person. Talk to you then.